Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to discuss about automated threat modeling using IRIS-RISK Community Edition. So before going to do hands-on on IRIS-RISK threat modeling, let me tell you the three phases which are involved in threat modeling procedure. The first phase is regarding decomposing the application. So within this phase, we need to understand end to end regarding the application, like what are the use cases of it and how it is interacting with external entities. And also we need to identify the entry points where attackers can might be interested to do some attacks against it, and also we need to identify the assets from data flow diagram where attacker might be interested in. So in decomposing the application, we need to decompose the use cases of the application, and also we need to understand its data components, like from front end to back end there is a data flow, and the back end will interact with the databases, and also it might be interacted with the remaining data stores. Like if it is hosted in AWS, it might be interacting with S3, or else it might be interacted with the RDS likewise. So we need to understand entirely about its architecture, and we need to draw a data flow diagram which consists of all the data components and the correlation between the data components using data flows. So this is the first phase, and in the second phase we need to determine the threats, and also we need to rank the threats. There is a third stage where we need to determine countermeasures and mitigation. So with the help of this tool, we can automate this procedure. Just we need to draw a DFT diagram within this tool. Later it will assess the entire architecture pattern, and based on its predefined risk patterns, it will suggest us some threats that this architecture can possess, and also it will rank those threats as well based on the likelihood and the impact, and also it will suggest us the countermeasures as well, which I like the most within this tool. Let me draw the diagram first. So if we can start this tool, there is a subsection called trust zone. So from this I will take the first trust zone, that is internet. And also I will take the another trust zone which is a public cloud. Yeah, so I will explain this tool with a simple DFT diagram in order to make it easier for everyone. So in the internet, let me select the browser. So end user will land to the browser, and in the client side section, basically he will interact with the web UI. So it is also another data component, and server side, so web UI will interact with the server side web application. Let me search for that. Also we can even draw like a backend server. Yeah, web application, server side. Maybe I'll take my favorite DB, MongoDB. Yeah, here it is, the MongoDB. Yeah. So I'll explain you with this simple data components. So while drawing the DFT diagram, first of all we need to select the trust zones. Since in within the internet, the end user can interact with browser, and later he will hit the web UI URL. After that, the UI will interact with the server side web application. If I am writing any kind of APIs using Express.js, if I am using it as my server side script, then it will interact with this, and also it will interact with the MongoDB. So first of all, let's if you right click on this, there is a component details. If you know anything about if you want to tag anything, you can tag here regarding the data component. For example, end user will interact with this. So I'm marking it as some tag like end user. End user will come land into the browser, and he will interact with the web UI. So I'm having details. So web UI has suppose here I'm taking very simple flow, which is a registration page, and also there is a authentication based on the username and password. So I want to explain you simple authentication flow to demonstrate this tool. So it consists of registration page, and also it will consist of login page. So I'm tagging both of them for this web UI. So, and this web application server, I have written it with Express.js, so I will tag it the technology for it. So this this MongoDB will deal with user login details, maybe user data that we can tag it. Maybe in the registration he can register with mobile number, email, and etc. So user data will be stored in this DB, and later if he is going to log in, it will cross check whether the credentials are really existing within the DB or not. So I'm tagging it with them. This is the second step. After drawing the data components, we need to tag whatever the data that we know about these data components, and after that we can complete the questionnaire as well. Here there are so many sections, so whatever the details that you know about each and every component, you can simply click on those things. Customer data that uniquely identify customer. Yeah, so when end user is entering his customer data like email, phone number in the registration page, this component will send it via HTTP call to server side web application. So I will mention it as sent from component and received by component, like that. And within the authentication with your browser, the browser presents a form that requests password based login. The server presents a valid SSL certificate signed by trusted certificate authority. If you know any details about it, you can click on whatever the data that you know. And does this component implement, contain, or incorporate cryptographic functions? No. How will data be encrypted between client and server? I'm assuming you will use HTTPS, so I clicked on that. Which HTML JS frameworks are in use? I will simply put on jQuery. Third-party content and scripts is content embedded from third party. It will use some external scripts to embed data. So JSON is used to interchange the data. So I'll click on done. So I know all this information, so I mentioned it here. Even we need to do the same for this server side implementation also. Customer data that uniquely identifies received by this component, and it will send those data to database. So I'm clicking on that. Personally identify any information related to sent and receive data privacy. Does this component have CCP compliant? No. Server, what technologies are used for this server? Maybe I'll go with JavaScript since it's a Express.js which is written in Node.js. Will the server side component implement authentication function? So web UI a new authentication will be created. Just a username password based authentication. We will interact with the UI. We'll enter username and password. Later it will take the username and password details and it will cross check with the DB. Does this component implement incorporate any cryptographic function? Maybe to hash the passwords and all. How will session manage in between the clients and server implement? If you know anything about session management, an existing session management, a new session management system will be built. You can answer these questions. Encrypted features. Is this component using third party XML processing, file upload? No. JSON framework. Will use JavaScript. How will users be added to the service? Added through external process, self-registration through service. During registration, how will users verify their account? If you know anything about it, you can answer. So now complete the questionnaire for database. So here database will store the customer data received by component. Personal data store and received by component. Maybe username and password, data transport, maybe encrypted communication I can suggest. Okay, so now you have drawn the trust levels and also you have involved data components, and also you have answered all the questionnaire. You have tagged whatever you know about this data components. Now it's time for us to draw data flows. First, user will land to this browser, and from this, we have the data flow, like data flow details in the UI. Basically, it will have registration page, it will have login page as well. So I'm tagging both of them, and in the registration page he must give his customer data and he has to give PII information. So within this data flow, on all these things will happen, so I'm marked them. And again this web UI will give a response to the browser. So I will mention the data flow details response. It will give just whether registration is successful or not. It don't give any customer data, PII or health information. So I just saved it. So once user tries to click on web page for registration and login, if it is the same thing, if it is registration, the registration will interact page will hit this API or backend service. So registration flow and login, if we enters credentials, it will interact with it. So what data, if in the registration customer data will send, yeah, and again same. And on this server side will give a valid response to it. So I'll just tag it is being loaded. Okay, I'll just tag response, and all data will be in JSON format. It won't send any PI info. And later when user registered, it will store the data in database. User data will be stored in database. Even if there is a login, it will do some querying whether that user is present within DB or not. So customer data, PI data, so it will flow, and again it will it will give response. So maybe in login it will give, yeah. So we have decomposed the application, we have added data components, and also we have answered all the questionnaires that we know. Yeah, now the first step has been done, decomposing the application, identifying data components and how it interacts with each and every entity, and what is the use cases, and what are the entry points. Maybe these two are the entry points, and what are the assets. Maybe this data will be the asset for it. Yeah, now we have to update our threat model. It will go and update. It is keep on updating. It will take around some time, like 1 minute. Yeah, it got updated. Now the second step is we need to determine the threats, and also we need to rank them. In general, we have to go through each and every data flow, and we have to identify threats, what threats that it can possess, and we have to rank them. But if we are using this tool, since it's a automated threat modeling, it will remove that burden from us, and it will suggest us the threats that this architecture can possess. See, if you can click on threats in web application in this component, yeah, it is giving around 55 threads. And also for the MongoDB, it is around giving 12 threads. And also in web UI component, it is giving 16 threads, etc. So if you see any one of the thread, attackers gain unauthorized data by exploiting vulnerabilities within the service. Let's see what is this threat. And ease of exploitation, very high impact. For the impact also, it is giving it is ranking. Attackers exploit vulnerabilities in the service and gain access to data or service for which they are not authorized. And also, not only suggesting the threats, it is also suggesting its countermeasures. This is also a good part. What countermeasures that we have to taken care. Apply required security patches to the service and restricts access to the service at the network layer to reduce the exposure. So this is how it will give the threat details, and also countermeasure details. If I go ahead for the web application threats, an attacker can obtain a valid session identifier to impersonate legitimate users, and it is ranking it as a confidentiality medium, integrity medium, availability medium, ease of exploitation high. Session management for web application is an application layer responsibility. Session security is critical overall security of the application. So it is giving the description, and also it is good part is also it is giving some references for us in order to study about it, and also it is giving the countermeasures and everything. Encrypt data between client and server side, set the HTTP security headers HSTS, secure cookies with their attribute, and also configure and enable appropriate certification revocation. Yeah, this is how it will give us all the threats that this architecture is associated with, and also the countermeasures. If you want to see countermeasures separately, only the countermeasures, you can see it here. Yeah, that is all about this tool, how we need to draw the diagram, and how it can able to identify threats, and how it can suggest us some countermeasures. Yeah, thank you guys.